All right. And welcome, everybody, to the first episode of what I'm calling the Crystal Crusaders side stories. The adventures of the characters of the Crystal Crusaders in sort of one on one downtime activities between the end of the first season, which was the Book of Haug, where they had fought and defeated the hill giant chiefess, Chief Ge, and the beginning of the next after we conclude our adventures in Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I have with me today the first of the downtime activities scheduled here. James, he is going to be playing Alexei again today. Hello, James. How are you doing?
Hello, I am the protagonist and thus I go first. It's
Of course,
understandable.
clearly, yes. The protagonist of the adventure, no doubt. Um, we're going to get started here today with a little bit of scene setting here. We begin sort of with a bird's eye view of the city of Waterdeep. It is about the middle of Flame Rule, which is sort of like the last of the true like summer months here. It's been about a month since the end of the previous adventures, where you have all split up to pursue your own agendas for a time, waiting for basically the next big development to happen in the activity with the giants going on across all of the Sword Coast here. Um, so we have this bird's eye view of the city of Waterdeep, middle of the day. Bright, sunny, hot summer day. People milling about, moving through the streets. Very crowded, New York City kind of esque. And we sort of fly over, and we see down below the relatively modest manner of the von Brabant estate. Not the most grandiose of manners here amidst the nobility, but far from the most you know, small, right? It's sizable estate. It has some grounds. It has a coach house attached, and we can see that there appears to have been like a pavilion tent that is in the process of being set up amidst the sort of yard area outside of the house. There are a number of servants that seem to be working on kind of erecting this tent, and you could see like tables and chairs being brought in to fill it, obviously preparing for some sort of event, some sort of party or something of the likes. And as we see, we kind of fly around and eventually looking into a window on sort of one of the upper floors, we see into one of the rooms of the manor. And James, would you describe, please, what Alexei's room looks like in the von Bourbon estate?
Well, I suppose it would definitely be messy if she's left to her own devices. If, however, the servants take it upon themselves to tidy it, then they would probably be finding themselves knee deep in what appears to be like scattered parchments of paper from Alexei's many research projects, ones that she has probably picked up and then discarded as quickly as she did so, out of frustration or just of boredom. Um, there's probably on her walls maybe a few mounted souvenirs from her travels. I imagine Israel's journal is probably like one of those. I think she maybe tried to get it published at some point, but it never worked out. um, I imagine there's maybe even a dragon chess game sitting in the corner that looks like it's partway through a game, probably one that she's playing against herself on. Um, but other than that, I imagine she'd probably be sitting at her desk, which again has just papers sprawled all over the place, and I imagine she's sitting at it reading a book currently, just as the sun sort of like shines through the window and illuminates the page.
All right. Yeah. So as you're sitting there in your room, it's messy. Like the servants haven't been in here to like tidy it up or anything. It's basically been left kind of as is from when you like originally left and kind of went on your adventure, as it were. They haven't been back to like tidy it up or anything, or they haven't touched anything. Um, But as you're sitting there reading, looking out the window onto the courtyard down below, where you can see like the tent being set up, um, you can hear like a rapping noise on your door. This sort of soft knocking um, coming
All right.
from the door.
Well, yeah, I imagine she'll probably like, bookmark her page and set the book down. Come in, she'll call before standing up.
All right. There's a moment to allow you some time to prepare before the door opens, and we see entering in what looks like a young, probably about the same age, roundabout as Alexei, mid 20s or so. This young maid who walks in, kind of like curtsies before you, before saying, "Milady, your mother has sent me to help you prepare for the festivities tonight. He says they are to be in your honor, and she would have you looking your best. Though I know you are
Al-
wont to accept this."
Alexei sort of grimaces a bit. There shan't be a corset, surely.
I am afraid your mother is most insistent, my lady.
Ah, very well. I suppose there's no getting out of it now that I've agreed anyway. Shall we begin then?
Yes. And so she like steps in, and basically you have maybe like kind of like a walk-in closet area that has all these like fancy clothes that your mother has purchased for you, and you really don't want to wear, but they're there
Mm-hmm.
and accessible. So basically, yeah, she begins the process of kind of picking out an outfit for tonight's sort of festivities, which you would know is basically this sort of you imagine it's probably like there's some ulterior motive to it. It's like a party basically scheduled in celebration of your triumphs basically during your adventures and everything that you've accomplished, but you have to imagine that your mother has probably like invited a number of like suitable men to like be like suitors essentially, as like an
Mm-hmm.
ulterior thing to like try to get you hooked up with somebody. Obviously you really don't have any interest, maybe you do, but you probably don't have any interest in that right now.
Nope.
But you sigh because you expect this kind of thing, and you've got to put on the show, right? You've got to at least pretend to pay lip service to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we kind of like cut ahead right as the servant begins to help you get dressed and all that. We cut ahead to later in the evening. The sun has begun to go down, and we see now like Alexei leaving the room, and the camera turns around, and we see down into the courtyard a large gathering of nobles around this pavilion tent that has kind of been erected in the center of the courtyard, milling about, having conversations, drinking, eating hors d'oeuvres and the likes. Before like the big feast. And Alexei, you are basically kind of approached by a number of different people. Some of them basically just like congratulate you on your adventures. Others introducing themselves. As expected, many sort of like young noblemen and like knights and whatnot in attendance, invited most likely by your mother. And you can see
Mm-hmm.
your mother and father are sort of sitting at the table with you. Basically making small talk, uh, doing that thing that like mothers do, like, oh, you're getting on in years, it's about time you settle down, why don't you get married, blah 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 blah. um
I'm
you're
busy killing
mostly
giants at the
yeah,
moment,
you're
Mom.
you're mostly kind of droning it out, right? You're just like, okay, sure, yep. And as the festivities are going on, um you are given a moment of time, right, where people are kind of like, food has been served. You're sitting there at the main table, and just kind of casually dining on some like Waterdavian dish, and you kind of see a figure making their way around like the outskirts of the tent, trying to kind of stay out of sight of most of the people. But they come around, and they walk up to the main table here, and like tap on your shoulder. As you turn to like look up, you see dressed in sort of a very form-fitting sort of butler suit, this dark purple-skinned elderly tiefling, who you would know as Sheldrake, the sort of like
Hmm.
head of staff. And he says, "My apologies for interrupting your meal, milady, but there is a message for you. Somebody wishes to meet with you."
And I sort of like look at Sheldrick a bit confused, and it's like, now, and I sort of gesture around to the festivities. Why were they not invited to the party?
He says, "I do not believe so. They say it is a message pertaining to your recent inquiries, whatever that
Oh,
means."
yes, and she'll probably like she'll think about it like, and then like, get a moment of recognition. It's like, ah, yes. Well, where are they? Do they wish to meet now?
And he says, "They are waiting outside of the main gates. I will escort you to them if you wish."
Ah, thank you. And I'll sort of like get up and I'll probably excuse myself from my parents and be like, "Let's just be 5 minutes."
Yeah, they get a lot of like, "Oh, where are you going?" Like, like, your food will get cold, etc., etc. But eventually, they let you wander off. Strong-willed young woman
Yeah.
that you are. And yeah, so you make your way out of the party, and it takes a while, right? Because you get stopped a couple of times on the way. People like wave you over and want to like converse for a time. But Sheldrick does his best to basically kind of like impose himself there, like just like
Blair.
standing behind you, like giving them the imposing like we've got a schedule to keep to or whatever. So that he kind of scares them off almost. And eventually you're brought through like the main estate and kind of like out the front door and to the front gates, where you see there is a not exactly a very like modestly dressed looking man. He's sort of a bit older in years. His hair is beginning to gray. And he's like shorter and definitely looks like he's put on weight in his years. But he is wearing what this very sort of like simple like kind of like wizardly outfit, right? It's not like hard like leather armors or like foppish clothing. It's very effective, like functional, like wizard's attire. And you can see he
Hmm.
has like an arcane focus kind of like slung over his back and kind of like a bag at his side. And yeah, as you exit, he kind of like bows and he says, "The young lady von Bourbon," and he says, "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Barnabas Blastwind, a member of the Watchful Order of Magus and Protectors." And he says, "I have come here because I believe I have something that will be of mutual interest given your recent enquiries to the Order."
Okay. What was his name again? He was a member of the
He's a member of the
order.
Watchful Orders of Magus and Protectors, which is basically like a guild of mages. Every spellcaster that lives in the city has to register with this order, but some like actually work for them. Others are just you're registered, right?
Yeah.
It's like being a card carrying member, but you don't actually do anything. Some of them, so he's somebody who actually like works with them. And his name is Barnabas Blastwin. He's kind of like older, kind of like portly looking,
Okay.
kind of
Is
fellow.
is he is this a name that I would know? Is he notable, or is this just like a normal guy that works for them?
He's not exactly. You've not really like heard the name before. But yeah, you can see he's kind of he's like short, hunchback. He's got like a cane that he walks on, and
Okay.
like I said, he looks. He doesn't look like a nobody, right? Like he's dressed all right. He just doesn't look like he's important either. Um,
Okay. Fair enough then. So yeah, I'll give him like a respectful curtsy and say pleasure, and say yes, the inquiries that I've been sending in. Has there been any news?
and he says, "Alas, while there are many such structures as you've been seeking located throughout the city that are in dire need of repair or the likes, we have been unable to find any that match your monetary criteria. You can understand property values in the city proper are, well, somewhat inflated.
And she nods and says, "Yes, that's been the main problem there."
And he says, however, I believe that something has come up which, while it is not exactly fitting of your criteria to be within, a reasonable distance of the city, it does suit your purposes as far as the monetary value is concerned. And as you know, sometimes compromises have to be made in such pursuits. Um, there is a slight problem, however, and that is a matter of discussion that I wish to have with you. You see, we have located a suitable enough workshop that has since been, well, lost of its ownership. And he says, a number of years ago, there were two bright young mages. One by the name of, let me see what their names were. One of them by the name of Ilumar. And he sort of describes him as having been sort of this like Eluskin human mage, young and impulsive. And who else was there? Okay, yes. So yeah, Ilumar and Amari.
Amari, okay.
And they are both men who basically were partners conducting this research together. When basically like there was an unfortunate accident in their research, and communication was lost with them, and they have both been presumed dead since then. Attempts were made to recover this research a long time ago, but the party that was sent out never returned, and from there it was deemed too much of a risk to send any further agents to their workshop to recover this research. And so it has been left abandoned for some time. And he says, while the contents of the laboratory are technically the property of the Watchful Order Magus they were working under at the time, I can say that with certainty, should somebody be able to go there and procure these research materials for us, that ownership of the property in question would not be an unsuitable or unreasonable reward.
I see. Where is this property then? Is it within the city or on the outskirts somewhere?
And he says, I am afraid it is quite a bit in the outskirts. You know how, well, us wizardly folk tend to be somewhat reclusive. And he says, I trust you are aware of the Sword Mountains. And you would kind of be vaguely aware that this is sort of like mountain range to the northeast of the city along the high road, kind of right up against
Yes,
the
mountain
coastline.
range.
And he says, approximately 2.5 days travel along the high road, there was a trail that cut into the Sword Mountains, and it was there that the workshop was located, high in its peaks. Out of the way, in case of any accidents that might have occurred during the research that they had been conducting. So it is not exactly a short jaunt from the city, but it is close by, and, well, within supplying distance. And I'm afraid that, at this point, beggars can't necessarily be choosers.
Well, if it is as you say, and that is the price of obtaining the property, I shan't see there being any issue. Um, this party that went missing on their initial recovery, do you know anything about what happened to them, or is it simply a mystery?
And he says, we are not entirely sure. We know that they had at least reached the facility in question, as they had sent contact to us via spell when they arrived. However, communication was lost shortly after. Attempts were made to re-establish contact, but unfortunately they could not be reached, and so they were presumed to have been slain in the process of reclaiming the workshop. We know not what
Hmm.
resides there, however, it is clearly dangerous to some extent. I would advise you to perhaps seek some mercenaries or something of the likes to assist you in this venture.
Hmm. I nod and say, very good. Hmm. And this research that needs recovered, are you able to tell me anything about what it is? Or even what school of magic, so I know what I'm looking for?
Um, Alas, most of the particulars of the research was lost to us. However, I do know that they were given a grant for this research by the Order of Magists and Protectors in order to pursue the creation of a magical assistant of some sort. Research to create a structure capable of assisting and amplifying magical research to expedite the process beyond what mere mortals are capable of.
Some sort of
Obviously,
magical assistant.
obviously, such a thing as well, constructs are a thing, summoned familiars, but this was to be something more, a facility imbued with this ability. But I am not sure how far their research evolved or whether they succeeded at all before their unfortunate demise.
Hmm. I understand. Brad, you're not pulling a howl on me, are you? Pulling a howl? Oh my god. Alright, so I'll sort of like think for a second. I'll say, well, I suppose, and she'll think for a moment and be like, I believe this is something that I could definitely look into. Would you like me to keep in correspondence with the order?
And he says, indeed. He says, we would like to be apprised of the situation. Um, we do not particularly care for the contents of the workshop necessarily. However, Ilumar and Mari are likely to have kept a number of documents pertaining their research, and we would be most interested in obtaining those, should you be capable of. Should you succeed, I can guarantee with some amount of certainty that um, ownership of the workshop would be most definitely on the table as far as a reward is concerned. Now, given its likely state of disrepair, it will still require some investment on your part to get up and running. However, it would be markedly cheaper than trying to find property within the city itself.
Very good then. And I'll sort of nod and say, well, I think this is something I shall be definitely looking into. Was there anything else that I needed to know, or would that be all?
Oh, he sort of shakes his head and says, "That is all that I came to speak with you today. If you would had any further questions, you could, of course, find me in our headquarters in the castle ward, or simply contact me via spell. I'm sure you're capable of such things. And other than that, I do not wish to keep you from your festivities any longer." And he sort of gestures to the party that you can kind of see over the fence.
Yep. I'll say, well, thank you very much. Have a good night.
He sort of bows again before uh, kind of like hobbling off, leaning heavily on his sort of walking staff as he like makes his way out. And you can see Sheldrake sort of standing behind you, and he says, "Would you like me to escort you back to the festivities, milady, or perhaps come up with a convenient excuse as to why you can no longer attend.
Uh, I sort of like look back at the festivities and look how I'm dressed, and I'll say, I have to go back to my room to change anyway. I may as well see the rest of the evening through. At least this has put me in a much better mood.
And
But I
he,
thank you for the offer.
and he kind of like bows and says, "Very well, milady," and then escorts you back to the festivities, which continue for a little bit of time past the falling of the sun and into the night. Basically you are kind of like sitting at the main table and forced to basically like go through people like
Mm-hmm.
introducing themselves to you and your mother, but complimenting and commenting on every single one. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Before eventually your father actually like excuses himself at some point. Obviously, like he himself not really able to put up with this. He excuses himself at
Take me
some point.
with you.
And eventually the festivities die down and the celebration ends, and you're basically left there with just the servants cleaning everything up, going to put it all back into place for tomorrow. And you are allowed to make your way back to your room. Although not before your mother stops you and asks you questions about everybody whom you had been introduced to during the night, and you struggle to remember the details of any of them.
It's hard when they all are pretty much the same.
Mhm.
Uh, all right. Well, once that's done, she'll probably head to her room and try and get some rest before heading out the next morning. I take it this is all before Valerie gets booted as well, isn't it? Like I've not just come home and she's just gone.
Yeah. So this is time wise. This is a month after your adventures concluded. The adventures of Dragon Heist, the Water Daemon job, do not begin for like another month. So this is basically like between
Okay,
the two times. Um,
fair enough. Fair enough.
so yeah, Valerie is still here. None of that craziness has happened. Obviously, Sheldrake is still here. Um,
Mm-hmm. Uh, all right then. But yeah, she'll just get ready to head out for the next morning.
okay. So that night, you return to your quarters. A servant helps you get undressed from the uncomfortable noble attire, fancy sort of like party going formal outfit, and you sleep for the night, and then you wake up the next morning. Breakfast is prepared and ready for you. Your father leaves early in the morning for work, and I suppose the day is yours here. As far as what is your next course of action then? I suppose. Um,
Well, obviously going alone is not the best idea, and he did suggest looking to try and hire some mercs. So I suppose that would be her next order of business. So I guess, Sheldrake is a person that needs to keep himself apprised of the situations in the city. So I suppose you'll approach him.
all right, yeah. So
Sheldrake?
you find Sheldrake, and he sort of bows and says, "Milady, what can I do for you?"
Well, after the discussions of last night, um, obviously going alone is not the best of ideas, and he did suggest that maybe hiring some mercenaries or getting a helping hand would probably be beneficial. I don't suppose you'd know where to start looking, would you?
And he just sort of says, "I would have thought that Milady would have learned something of this during her adventuresome days, but I do know a few places. You could always check the taverns that are frequented by such folks, though they are likely to be of more rakish personalities. Or there are some groups of mercenaries and sellswords that proffer their services. I have some connections to a few. If you would like, I
If you'd
could
be able to,
arrange a meeting."
if you could, that would be very helpful. I can't guarantee I would take them, of course, but I would at least like to discuss the possibility.
And he sort of nods and says, "Very well, I will make preparations for you to meet with some of these mercenaries.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sheldrick. Let me know when you hear something.
And he sort of nods and says, "Of course."
All right. So I suppose after that, Alexei would probably leave the estate.
Sure.
Can't just wait around for Sheldrake to give her an appointment. So he suggested some of the local watering holes, and I think the yawning portal is a good first stop.
It is definitely the most standout of the adventuring establishments in the area. Um, Obviously, many adventurous folk frequent there, and so yeah, you make your way. Um, I assume you basically kind of like get a ride there.
Mm-hmm.
On your family's dime or whatever, uh, using your
Magic to
using
the
your
yawning portal.
using your background feature. And Yeah, so you make your way through the city, the heavy traffic early in the morning, and eventually you make your way to the yawning portal. Obviously, first thing in the morning, it's not exactly packed with people, right? Like it would be at night, but there are quite a few people still sort of milling about. You see teams of, in fact, as you're entering, you see Durnan is actually, he's not behind the bar. He's actually standing at what looks like this like large crane that is suspended over the well, and there is a group. There's basically like this large kind of like bucket, almost like this big like bathtub sized like bucket, dangling from a rope attached to that crane, and you can see it's been pulled to the side, and is what appears to be like a party of adventurers like climbing into the bucket, and you see they're being lowered down into the well as you're sort of arriving. And it's a process that takes some time as they're like slowly lowered down into the well. You see around the well, people sort of like whispering to each other in hushed voices, exchanging coins back and forth. Obviously, gambling on whether these people are even going to make it back or not. But there are several other like groups of people sort of scattered around that look like sort of adventuring parties and the likes. Obviously, like just like walking up to them and just being like, "Hey, you want to work for me?" is probably not the best way to go about things, but I don't know what is Alexei thing. What is Alexei's sort of approach to this situation?
Hmm. Well, someone's got to be manning the bar, I take it, even if Durnan's busy at the moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take very long for like him to finish lowering them down. So like he returns to the bar once he's done with that. And there's some like there's like serving staff too, right? Like there's like a waiter and waitress that kind of like go around taking orders because it's such a large like it's multi-storied, right? So like obviously one person can't do it themselves. So there's like serving staff too that go around taking orders and helping and stuff like that.
Hmm. Fair enough then. Well, I think she'd order a drink first, and then I imagine it'd be something non-alcoholic, but she'll get a drink first, and then like when she gets served, she'd probably ask, either Durnan or one of the servers or whatever, and it'd be like, I'm looking for someone to help me with an overland adventure. Not quite, and she gestures to the well, what that is. I don't suppose anyone's been hanging around the past few days or so, um, who have voiced such a thing that they'd be interested in.
And you're talking to Durnan.
Yeah, sure, Durnan or whoever
Sure,
serves me.
whoever serves you. Um, yeah, so you're talking to I'll say it's like one of the serving staff. He says, well, there are quite a few people that come here looking for work. He kind of like looks around and says, most of the folks here are the regulars looking to make their forays into the Undermountain rather than looking for work elsewhere. But if you'd like, you could talk with the boss and he could see if maybe he could put up an advertisement for you or something of the likes.
Ah, didn't know. And I sort of like, is there a board where actually people post jobs in the yawning portal?
Um, so it's not like a job board, but there's basically like a bulletin board, right, where people like post all sorts of like stuff, right? So it's like, there's like wanted posters, there's like, missing pets, there's just like advertisements for festivals or other establishments and stuff that have been like approved. So it's kind of like a general like board, essentially, like a information
Okay.
board. But occasionally, Durnan allows people to post like job offers and stuff on there, especially if it's like a larger deal.
Okay, fair enough then. Then she'll like nod and say that'd be most helpful. Says if he could.
Yeah, so he just sort of gestures like with his thumb back towards the bar, and he says, "Well, he's right over there. Best ask yourself." And he says, "Can't just go posting things willy nilly. He'll need his permission first." But I don't
Hmm.
see why he wouldn't give it to you.
Yep. So I'll like down my non-alcoholic beverage and make
Mm-hmm.
my way up to Durnan and say it's like Durnan, a moment if you have one.
Yeah, so he sort of finishes like sliding a mug of ale over to somebody at the counter before turning to you, and he says, "Ah, you lass, what you want?"
Says, well, I was actually wondering if I'd be able to post up an advertisement. I gesture over to the board on your board there.
And he says,
Says, I've got an adventure planned and I need some people who might be willing to come.
he says, looking for muscle, are you? And he says, well, he says, of course you're free to post whatever it is you're looking to hire for, and of course I'd like to know the details myself. Don't really like sending my clients into death traps, after all.
Understandable. He says, well, I've recently been approached with opportunity for myself. There is a tower located in the. Oh God, give me a second here. Nope. The the Sword Mountains. Apparently, it's been abandoned for quite some time, and there are rumors that there's some danger attached to it. Thus, I wish to go and secure. I wish to go in and to the mountain to secure my job.
Okay, yeah, he sort of like nods. He says, I understand. Crazy wizard shit up in the mountains, eh? And he says,
Precisely.
right, well, he says, doesn't sound like it's nothing too serious, run of the mill adventure, as it were. Right, I can make some space for you on the board. It'll be 5 gold fee for the posting the advertisement, and we'll keep it up there for a 10 day.
Very good.
He says,
And I'll
and
like
don't
slide in the
make
five
nothing
gold.
too ostentatious or braggadocious, you hear me? Letter sized, alright? I don't want you taking up
Letter
my whole
sized.
board.
He nods and says, letter sized. Got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so take the coin.
Hmm.
And
All
he
right.
says,
So
when you return with your advertisement, just post it up there. I'll have some space cleared out for it. And he says, no promises it'll attract anybody, but a lot of folks come around here, so there's a good chance.
thank you very much. I shall return shortly. All right. And then let's see. I don't actually think I have proficiency in like writing tools or whatever. Calligrapher set, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, so there's like calligraphy, which is like writing, and then there's like, do you want to actually put like artwork on it to like try to attract people? And so like,
Yes, I was thinking maybe she would go and see if she can hire a calligrapher to make her a quick advertisement.
yeah, let me see here what if there's like a good a good place for that. Here in Waterdeep.
Hmm. I imagine there's a guild for it, like the
This,
Advertisers Guild or
yeah,
some
there's
bullshit.
there's guilds for everything, man. See, bakers, no, coopers, farmer grocers, musicians. The, probably like the bards maybe would be like a good one there. So that's an option. Um, fishmongers though. Explorers, pewters, watermen, jesters guild, jewelers guild. Skinners, tanners, three laborers, mariners, smiths, sail makers, weavers, and dyes. Colors. What the fuck is a corviser? Oh, there's a scribes, like there's a scribes guild. Um, yeah, the scriveners, scribes, and clerks guild. Furriers, fingers, stationers, maps and chart makers. Not really mapping. Vintners. So yeah, if you go to like the guild of scriveners, scribes, and clerks, you could basically have them. They probably have some sort of like kind of like printing press setup almost or whatever that they can
Hmm.
um, kind of like arrange an advertisement for you. If you wanted to have like artwork commissioned to like make it pop out a bit more, it would cost a little bit extra. Or they can just do like a plain kind of like advertisement, free of embellishments.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Like, I take it would they have just like artwork like set aside with this like, would you like the
Stock
guy with the
photos.
dragon and the sword? Or we could give you like the orcs, fighting the one man.
Yeah, they've got a collection of stock photos.
Yeah. But yeah, okay then. I'll suppose I'll head to that guild office then, and I'll look to see about getting like a nice advertisement put up with, of course, like maybe at least one piece of art on it, if
Okay.
possible. Maybe a picture of like I don't know a wizard with like and there's a menacing tower and the wizard's casting a spell or something. Just to emphasize the magical nature of the quest and also the danger and the adventure and the excitement.
Sure,
And
and
I would be willing to pay extra to have it done quickly.
okay. Um, and I guess do you want just like one copy of this, or do you want like multiple? Because that'll factor in right to the price as well.
Hmm, good question. Well, I mean, are there other like the Yawning Portal is the only place we've been to so far that's like this. But are there
I
any
mean,
other big adventure hubs?
that's like the big name one. Like there are other like large like taverns in the city, kind of like spread out. Like that's like the big one, but it's not the only one, right? Like Waterdeep's like a huge place with tons of people, so like they congregate all over the place, right? So you could go to almost every tavern in the city and probably find groups of adventurers there. Um,
Okay. Take me to the Waterdeep map page real quick.
I don't have it on this campaign.
I think it'll still be in your library if you like have
um,
them categorized.
yeah, so it's like I think I've got like a low res version.
Hang on, I can just Google image, can't I?
Yeah, you probably
Waterdeep
could.
map.
Or you could just hop into
Here
the
we
whole
are.
campaign.
I think I've got it here. Um, okay, that's very low res apparently.
Yeah, I
Oh
think
God, because it's a paid download.
they're probably gonna be pretty low res, the ones that you find there. Um,
Okay, here we are. So yeah, the Yawning Portal is down in the dock ward, isn't it?
yeah, it's close. I think it's like technically in the castle ward, but it's like pretty close to the border of the dock ward and the trades ward there.
Let's see.
So it's like at the
Yeah,
south
it's like
end
in
of
the
the
middle of the
city.
one. I suppose she'll get four. She'll think maybe I can put one in the dock ward, one in the southern ward, and one in the sea ward, and maybe one in the castle. Let's see. The castle ward and north ward are the rich parts of town, aren't they?
Yeah, so the north ward and the sea ward are kind of like the richer, um, like
Oh,
the
right.
the richer places. Like the north ward is like nobles. The sea ward is like well-to-do merchants, and the likes, lesser nobles and stuff like that. There's some temples there, um, but it's still sort of like it's like basically like high middle class, like low upper class kind of area. And the
Hmm.
the castle ward is like basically it's like the bureaucratic kind of like
Yeah.
administrative
Oh,
center of the city. But that doesn't mean that there's not like facility, like there's not areas there. It's just that they're like wealthier areas where people live.
yeah. Okay, no, I've got it actually. I'll get four. I'll get one for the dock ward, one for the southern ward, one for the market, which is like between those three, is like in the middle of the town.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose I'll get one for the trades, and then one for the yawning portal as well, of course. So one, two, three, four. Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds good.
All right. Yeah. So you had there, you say I want this and this, and I wanted to say this, and you like look through their selection of like stamps that they already had like made or whatever, maybe for like a previous client a long time ago, or just like generic ones, and you pick out one that like seems suitable enough. Um, and yeah, so
Hmm.
they kind of like arrange it and like give you basically like a brief like preview of like what it's going to look like. And you say you want four. It's not exactly like a bulk job. You're printing out hundreds, but it's more than just a one-off. So all said and done, if you want like expedited, so like kind of like I guess like how quickly do you want it expedited, right? Do you want to
Like
like
now?
now? Okay. Um, okay, yeah. To jump the queue like that, we'll say probably just for it's only 4 copies. But again, like they've got this machine right to do it, so it's a lot
Hmm.
of they have to unset all the letters and like re put it in. So it's a process, right? So it'll definitely be a bit. Probably say like 50 gold.
50 golds.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
If you want it, just
So
like
how
if you
much would
want them to like switch it over and like print them out right now.
how long would it be to wait, and like how much would that be?
With the current waiting list, it'll probably be several days, give or take. Maybe like 2 or 3 days before they can process this order again because it's like such a small like batch order. Um, they would want to finish like the big bulk orders where they can just like set the machine and run them off a whole bunch before they do like a small like one-off thing like this. So it'll be a few days and it probably costs you like half as much.
Nah, no, I'll pay the 50 gold. I don't want to wait around to get another engagement party going or some crap. Like,
All right.
so I guess I'll slide over like was it like 5 platinums? It's 10 to 1, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 10 to 1 for.
Yeah, I'll slide over like 5 platinums. Say
Okay.
as quickly as possible, please. I'll wait here if that's possible.
Yeah, so they nod and say, "Very well," and he says, "We will have them out for you as soon as possible." And they kind of like rally the people to basically quickly set this up so they can print out these flyers for you. It takes like an hour or two, right? Because it's just a process, just setting up
Yeah.
the damn machine. But eventually
You notice
they
that one guy complaining about having to do more work than he has to. Like,
yeah, of course. And so eventually, like they dry off the flyers and like present you with the sort of sheets there, all done up as you've requested. Basically this advertisement, looking for adventure, et cetera, et cetera.
mhm.
Details of the job. Um, Probably just like a where I guess where exactly do you like what do you put as far as like contact information, right? Like what do you say as far as where to find you?
Yes, that's kind of what I was thinking. I can either refer them to my estate, but I kind of want to keep those two lives separate. Um, does I mean, this is like a fantasy setting. I don't think it's completely out the realm of possibility to say you can find me within the next. You can find me within the yawning portal between these hours.
Yeah, I mean, if you want
Like
to,
people do
like,
that, don't they?
yeah, I mean, if you want to, like, basically put on there, like, find me at the Yawning Portal such and such hours, and then like book it basically and be there for those times, like, you're more than welcome to do that, obviously.
Yeah, I think I'll do that then. Like, I don't want people coming to my house, you know. So I'll like, yeah, I'll put that on. Like, meet me at the yawning portal between the, like, I guess the hours of like 8 and 8. You know, I feel like she could probably spend most of her day there just reading and doing shit and not being home.
Of course, you might get some like you might have to actually like buy something or whatever if you're staying that long,
Yeah,
but um,
obviously.
buy a few drinks, spend the day reading there, maybe on like one of the upper floors or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can
Asked
definitely
her if I can reserve a stall.
you can definitely do that. Just kind of quiet yourself away there. Foot the bill on your family.
hmm Thanks,
That-
thanks, mom. Thanks, dad.
I think that is basically what your background feature lets you do. I think so.
Yep.
Just like put it
Yep.
on
So I'll
the
just do that then.
tab.
Yep. So as well as the yawning portal, I guess I'll try and find like the most popular taverns for adventurers in the dock ward, the southern ward, and then I'll probably just put like one on the main like. I imagine the market square has like boards like that, so I'll
Yeah,
probably put one
probably.
on there.
Yeah, so you go around like the city, basically, kind of like spreading out these notices. Easy to notice places. The biggest taverns in the area. Um, and you post up those notices. It takes you the better part of the day, pretty much, right? Because you're wandering around the whole city, looking for these places. Asking questions of the locals because obviously you don't go everywhere in the city. So you ask
Hmm.
questions here and there, like, oh, what do you think is the best place to put this? And so yeah, you go around, you put up all these notices, and eventually towards the end of the day, you begin to return home.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, when you return, you see that some of the serving staff sort of like bow and greet you as you return home, and then like a few moments after you're kind of like settling down, maybe you're like in the lounge or whatever, um, you you hear someone like approaching, and then you like turn and see Sheldrake, and he says, "Milady," he says, "I got into contact with my associates, and he says they are willing to meet with you on the morrow. He says if you are available. I will caution you that they are a bit more pricey than you are like to find from the riffraff of the city. However, they are trained for this sort of thing, so they will be more reliable in the long run. A trade off,
I
if
see.
you would."
I nod and I say, I see, I understand. Um, well, I'll sort of like inform him of like my day's activities and where I'll be spending most of the time at the yawning portal going forward as I put out those advertisements. I'll say, so ideally, I would like to try and either meet them at the would they be able to meet me at the yawning portal tomorrow? At least their leader or representative.
And he said, "That can be arranged."
Very good. And Sheldrake, these men are professionals, as you say, but I won't have to worry about them, will I? Um, doing anything questionable?
"I'm not quite sure what you are inferring, milady."
Well, you hear all these stories about mercenaries. They only work for coin and such, and they've been known to sometimes betray their contractor
And he says,
if they sense more coin from a competitor or something like that.
"I assure you that my associates and the men that they employ are loyal, almost to a fault. They will not betray the contract. They cannot
Ah,
betray
very
the
good.
contract."
They cannot?
He sort of nods.
I so they have a very stringent sense of honor then.
Yes, that is one way to put it.
And she'll kind of go like, right. Well, yes, send them my way tomorrow then at the Yawning Portal. I think I'll be booking myself a booth there. Thank you, Sheldrake. It's very appreciated.
And he just sort of says, "Do not mention it, young lady. It is my pleasure to serve." And he sort of bows as he makes his exit from the room.
All right, perfect. Well, I suppose she'll probably rest up. She'll have to rise early, make her way to the Yawning Portal, and then speak to Durna about getting a booth set aside for her.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so again, you kind of head to sleep for the night. And then, yeah, in the morning you go and basically kind of reserve an area of the yawning portal for your own uses. And yeah, so you hang out there. At first, it's very sort of like uneventful. Obviously, like it's going to take some time for your notice to be like noticed and kind of spread. So for most of the first day, you're sort of there on your own, just sort of like reading, ordering the occasional drink or meal or something of the likes, putting it on the family tab,
Hmm.
and eventually you are approached. You hear the sound of. Let me see here. What does it look like? You hear the sound of like armored boots, like on the wooden floor, approaching you. Um, and you see as you turn to look, you see what looks like a rather tall and imposing dark-skinned woman with sort of like braided black hair, wearing what appears to be like full sort of like plate mail armor, with kind of these like hempen like leather kind of pants, heavy combat sort of boots, wearing some sort of like kind of gold trimmed like red silken kind of like shawl almost, and she has this like a long sword on her hip, on one hip, a crossbow on the other hip, and a massive like battle axe strapped across her back.
Holy
And
fuck.
Yeah, and you can see that she has a an insignia of some sort that you don't recognize, like a basically like an insignia on her like tabard, essentially. Um, Obviously, probably like some sort of like symbol of her mercenary company or something of the likes. Um, and yeah, so she approaches you. I don't have a handout in this campaign. Um, but she approaches you like sitting down across from you without like saying anything before like looking up at a serving staff that is like passing by and just sort of like nodding at them and they just sort of like nod and like walk off and then she sort of turns to you like hands like folded over together like kind of like looking you up and down and says the young lady von Bourbon, I presume.
You presume correct. And your name might be?
Tashlin. Tashlin Yafira.
Yafira. I'm gonna Google search. They must have a picture, right? Wait, how do you spell it? Brad! Copy
Um,
paste.
Here, if you go into just go into the other campaign, I'll give you the handout because I don't want you googling it because you might find some shit that you don't.
Okay,
Yeah,
never mind then. Will this be the Dragon Heist one?
Dragon Heist one. Yeah.
Okay. Oh wait, I get it. Like these are pictures you have from the Dragon Heist module that you've
Yeah.
not uploaded, aren't they?
Yeah, they're not.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have them like saved or whatever. Okay, so you're. Let me know when you're fully loaded in and I'll pop it up to you.
Yep, just pop it out.
Boom.
Tashlin Yafira. Is she a drow?
No, she's human.
Ah, right. Okay. Okay, perfect. Like, is this a name that Alexei would recognize?
No,
No, I take it.
no.
Very good. All right, and she'll nod and say, "A pleasure to meet you. I imagine you're the mercenary that Sheldrake referred."
And says, indeed I am, although I do not employ my services as such personally anymore. I do command a large force of individuals that are suitable to many tasks, such as guarding caravans or performing security on high profile events, even fighting wars occasionally. My men are highly trained and capable of any task presented to them, but they do not come cheap.
So I have heard. What is the name of your company?
And he says, we are the Black Hands.
Black Hand Company, eh? All right. Again, something I've not heard of, I take it.
No.
Fair enough then. I'm just gonna hop back to the other game now to note this in
Mm-hmm.
Alexei sheet, and I'll say, very, very good. And Alexei will sort of say, it's like, well, did Sheldrick inform you of the situation, or would you like me to lay out the details of the job?
And he says, he left it to you to explain the details in thoroughly.
Very good. And she'll say, well, a couple nights ago, I was informed by a member of the Watchful Order of Magus and Protectors, as I am a wizard myself, about a tower in the Sword Mountains that apparently used to be occupied. However, the magical research that was there was apparently lost when the two doing said research mysteriously disappeared. I believe an adventuring party was sent out not long after, but they never returned. They made it to the tower itself, but apparently never came out. As a result, in exchange for being given this tower, I've been tasked with recovering said magical research from it. The details of which are hazy, to say the least. The Order has not deigned it necessary to inform me of all the details. However, they've told me that it's apparently something to do with some sort of magical assistant that would aid and assist with any number of research projects in the future. And she'll just sort of shrug and say, nonetheless, from what I've heard, the tower is definitely dangerous, either from constructs or some sort of other threats that I'm not aware of. And, well, going alone doesn't seem the best idea. Is this something that you'd be able to assist with, or your men at least?
She sort of like, kind of like sits back a bit, like crossing her arms again, kind of like looking you up and down, and says, "You mean to go yourself, or do you wish to send my men alone?"
He says, I'll be going along.
He says, And pardon me if you find this a bit of a rude question. What exactly is it that you are capable of?
And she'll like sort of chuckle nervously, I suppose, and say, "Well, I'm a wizard. I've trained at Blackstaff Academy for most of my life. You may have heard of my adventuring company and the exploits that we have performed across the lands, the Crystal Crusaders."
Can't
Nothing.
can't say that I have.
Ah, well, maybe not then. He says, "Well, nonetheless, as I am a wizard, I am capable of casting spells." He says, "I can hold my own in a fight."
You like she like nods and seems to be sort of like taking note. And she says, "How many men would you be looking to hire for this expedition?"
Hmm. And she says, "Well, traditionally, I've never operated in more than a small band of fellow companions, so." And she'll sort of think for a moment, and I suppose she'll sort of think and say, "I wasn't thinking more than a dozen." And she says, "Maybe half a dozen would do, but that would, I suppose, depend on the price."
He says, "Well, for this sort of operation, I would agree that a smaller team would be more qualified." He says, "It gets to a point where you're funneling into such a small facility that sending a dozen men into a choke point doesn't really help much." He says, "By my expertise, I wager 4 to 6 would be more than enough."
And she'll nod and say, "Well, that fits me perfectly, then." And smile. And she'll say, "Given the arcane nature of the building, although I am a magic user myself, it may be beneficial to have an additional one if that's someone you can provide. Perhaps even a cleric."
I will take stock of who we have available for jobs and see what is possible. Um, I cannot promise a specific companion, but we can provide at least capable combatants.
And she'll nod and say, "Well, Sheldrake did recommend you highly, um, and she'll say it's like, and I trust his judgment. So, how much would the fee for such a company be running me here?"
He says, "Do you have an estimate of how long this job is to last?"
Well, it's at least a 2-day trek from here to the mountain, and so 2 days there, 2 days back. Hard to say how long we'd be there. I suppose Alexei would probably think for a little bit and say a week, perhaps,
He says,
putting it generously anyway, provided there's no delays on the way.
he says, very well. Contract their services out for a 10-day. We'll say, we'll say 4. Put it at the lower end here. Um, I'll put a note in here about your request, though I cannot say that it will be granted necessarily. All said and done, 4 of my men for this journey will set you back approximately 600 gold.
Holy shit. I mean, I could afford it. So I think Alexei would probably think on it. It's like, definitely pricey, but if the quality is as you say,
I
I'll
assure
sort of think,
you they are worth it over the riffraff you'll find dwelling in taverns.
hmm, would it be possible for me to sit on it for a little while and come back to you?
She sort of nods and says, "Of course, the offer is open."
Where may I find you if I decide to take you up?
Should you wish to speak with me, simply have your attendant contact me again to arrange a meeting.
Very well. And she'll say it's like, there was one last thing. No offense, of course. I'm not trying to besmirch your honor or any of the like. Um, However, I've never really hired mercenaries before. Sheldrake assures me that you are all loyal to a fault and that you shan't break contract. Are you able to vouch for it yourself? He said something that you can't break contracts. Wasn't sure what
And
he meant by that.
he says, all of our mercenaries, as part of their training, undergo rather harsh um, instructions as far as loyalty is concerned. We never renege on a contract. And in some cases, even magical compulsion is employed to ensure that this is the case, should we be dealing with foes capable of undermining their own mental faculties.
Does this sound legal, Brad? Like by the laws of the land or of Waterdeep, anyway.
If they're like willingly like submitting themselves to it, but
Mm-hmm.
who can
Okay.
say? I mean,
I mean,
they're like a
yeah.
mercenary company. They're a little bit like outside of like they operate everywhere, so they're a little bit like kind of in the gray zone, right outside the laws of civilization necessarily.
Okay, fair enough then. Well, Alexei will like nod and say, "Well, thank you. That sets my mind at ease." And says, "Well, I think that should be all that I have to ask, unless you have any further questions about the details of the job."
No, I think that this is enough information to go on. I will begin working on assembling a group, and should you be interested in accepting this contract, as I said, have your attendant contact me and we could schedule a meeting to hash out the details. Or if not, it was a pleasure speaking with you anyways. Should you
Likewise. Have a good day.
should you have need of our services in the future, please do remember. And she sort of like
Of
smiles
course.
and kind of like lifts herself up again, like all of her equipment kind of like rattling as she leaves and kind of walks off her heavy like boot steps on the wooden floors.
Mm-hmm. Alexei will sort of like, let out a sigh of relief, like after she's like left. It's like, oh, that was well, and I suppose she'll just continue like reading and waiting around to see if any other like independent wanton adventurers show up,
Yeah.
willing
So
to
for the
risk life
rest
and limb.
for the rest of the first day, it's sort of relatively quiet. It seems like word hasn't necessarily spread just yet. So you spend like the rest of the day kind of in the tavern until 8 o'clock or whatever when you said you would no longer be there, and then you return to the manor again, sort of like greeted by the servants, and basically at some point Sheldrake sort of says, "Did your meeting go as planned, my lady?"
Yes, it did. And she'll say, yes, Tashlin was very professional and, although pricey, like you did admit, she appeared, looked like she had very strong confidence in the quality of her soldiery. Where did you find her, Sheldrake? I've never heard of the Black Hand Company before.
I have a cousin who was employed by them in the distant past.
Ah, I see.
He
Does he still
smiles.
work for them?
Unfortunately, not.
Okay then. And say, well, like I told her, I'll probably be sitting on the offer for a little while just to see if any other people come barking up the tree. I'll let you know though if I need to get back in contact with her and decide to hire the team.
Very well. I will be on standby should you wish to contact her again. In the meantime, good luck with your search through the riffraff and the rat catchers.
Thank you, Sheldrick. uh, but yeah, I suppose that's just what she'll be doing for the like, cause she's got a 10 day from what's his face of the yawning portal, so that's probably how long she'll give it before she starts making a decision about who to hire.
Sure. Um,
I don't know if like you want to keep going or.
no, yeah, so we'll probably kind of like fast forward a bit. So I think you're probably approached by like several groups during the week or so. Of varying quality. Uh, there are definitely, we'll say you probably are approached by like four other like groups in total, at least like their leaders, all around that sort of same size, about four or so people, adventuring
Hmm.
parties. And they sort of run the gamut. There's a couple that you kind of like throw out immediately just because it comes up to you like a drunken wreck, like just doesn't really seem like suitable. So you managed to narrow it down to a couple of possibilities. There is a relatively unknown and, as far as you are aware, somewhat inexperienced group of adventurers that are willing to sort of take this job and go along with you. You're not exactly sure of the level of danger that you will be facing. So there is kind of that little bit of risk there. They seem a little bit green, but they are the
Hmm.
cheapest by far. Hiring their services, the four of them only ask for approximately 30 gold each, so it'd only be about like 120 gold in total to hire
Hmm.
them. But as I said, they are sort of like the out of character. They are the lowest level option. Um, uh,
Okay.
and then there's another group that approaches you. They're a little bit more experienced. Again, they aren't really like famous or anything like that. They don't have like a big name or like backing behind them. But they do tell you stories of like beasts that they felled, adventures that they've gone on. They seem to like know what they're talking about. Um, at the very least, they would be like a bit more experienced, quote unquote. They would cost approximately like twice as much. Probably looking
For
at about
240.
yeah about 240 250 ish, depending. And then there's of course the more expensive but the most experienced option, also the most reliable, quote unquote, in the mercenaries.
Okay. Yeah. So the Green Party, the Medium Party, or just hire the mercenaries.
Mm-hmm.
And 600 gold is so much, though. I need to save money to actually renovate the place as well. Hmm. I guess it's between. Well, I'm not taking like the basic adventurers. Like they would just die to a construct like immediately. Like, would I
Uh,
know how tough a magical construct is? I'm sure I, in some sense, would, right?
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of different types of constructs, right? There are weak, frail constructs that like are pretty easy to beat up. They aren't necessarily like made for combat. But then there are, you've heard of like constructs that can wipe out entire armies. Like it runs the whole gamut. Like it depends on what they're designed and made for, right? And what they're capable
Hmm.
of. So it's hard to get a say.
Let me just look at my strongholds and followers rules real quick.
Hmm.
Acquiring a stronghold. Let's see. A tower, they're typically like 8,000 gold, and I've got like fucking 3,000 gold here. Like if I go with the most expensive ones, I might not have enough money to renovate the whole thing after it's all over. Six. Hmm.
No, you don't have enough money to renovate the whole thing now.
Yes, true.
I mean, I will say this basically, like at the conclusion of the adventure, you will have ownership of this property. You're probably not going to be able to quite afford just yet to get it up to snuff, but there will be some reward for you in obtaining it. So you will get something out of it. You just won't have a fully functioning tower just yet.
So we'll probably return to the main campaign for a bit,
Yes.
and then like, right, okay.
And then after like probably like after the next chapter or whatever, during that you'll have accrued enough to like begin and finish the renovation essentially. But
Right.
for now, this is just about like acquiring it, fortifying it a little bit, and then there'll be something in it for you at the end of this.
Right. Well, if that's the case, and I'm not gonna have it ready before the next adventure anyway. But I might as well like go with the mercenary company then.
Okay.
So 600 golds, that's gonna be 60 platinums. That puts me down to 241 platinum coins.
Yeah, so you arrange a meeting again with Tashlin to like hash out the details of the contract and basically get it all like signed, and you hand over the gold, and she basically says like, okay, well, I'll assemble this group and I'll have them meet you at a location of your choosing, um, and basically from there on they'll be told to like listen to your commands for the duration of uh, the contract.
Okay, wonderful. Alexei's gonna become a leader. I can feel it.
There's some other stipulations in the contract as well about like you are not like liable should any of them perish in the midst of this adventure, etc., etc. You know, blah 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 blah. So like it actually seems like pretty generous as far as like you're not going to be charged for like resurrection fees if any of them die or anything like that.
Right, okay. That's pretty. I take it would they resurrect their own dead? Would they want us to take the bodies back if they do die?
Well, I mean, you wouldn't know, but presumably the others. I guess there is like a stipulation in there. Should they all perish and you don't, that it's on you to like transport. They want the bodies returned to them and the equipment returned to them. But assumedly, if they don't all die, then it's they'll take care of it, right?
Yeah, okay, fair enough then. All right. Um, I think as well, just to be on the safe side, maybe I should grab a few healing potions before,
Sure. Yeah,
all that starts.
you can seek out any sort of like basic
Would
equipment or
they
anything
be
of the likes.
supplied with, yeah, would they be supplied with their own equipment, things like healing potions and
Yeah,
stuff?
they'll have their own like equipment in the likes, their own supplies.
Okay, good to know, good to know. Very well then. I suppose like Alexei, like, going on another big adventure, doesn't want to be caught with her trousers down, so I guess I'll grab like two normal potions of healing.
Sure. So another
That's 100
100 gold.
golds.
Yep.
Ugh, alright. Let's hope I don't have to spend much more.
um,
Potion. They're 50 gold, aren't yeah.
yeah, they're
Potion.
50,
Oh.
50 each.
Healing. Here we are. Drop to the compendium. 2. Okay, well I can't think of anything else. Is that us done then?
Yeah, so with that, that will conclude this sort of introductory segment. Like I said, we probably won't meet next week. I'll probably need like maybe like a week or two as I like go to take basically like this group that you've hired, right, and the decision you've made here, and go to them and say, okay, you are making like these sorts of characters, and get all that set up and ready to go. So yeah, I'll let you know when everything's ready to go, and then we'll get together and we'll run this adventure. That'll probably be like maybe like a session or two in length, and then we'll see where things go from there.
Alright, perfect. Alright. Well, guess I'll shoot off now, man. I'll speak to you later.
Yeah, I will see you on Saturday. Be there on time.
Alright,
Actually, early.
I
Be
will.
there early.
Okay, fine.
Tell everybody
Alright,
else to
bye.
be there early. Bye.